Restrictive labor laws, minimum wages, public schools, jobs programs, and a maze of welfare programs have all been prescribed as weapons in the war against poverty. But poverty is winning.
You're not going to believe this when a new study on welfare benefits finds it actually pays more not to work in many states. According to the Cato Institute, welfare...
The armed services themselves have fostered a new awareness among their members that the country they have saved from defeat belongs to all the British people.
This is our country, and if there is injustice, inequality, it's our fault for allowing it.
Why not write your MP about it?
Yes, that's just it. We've got a parliament, and it's up to us to say who goes there, and to make sure they do their job when they get there.
Conservatives, liberals, labor rights, and minor parties have joined in supporting government-sponsored programs for post-war housing and health, for social security and education.
This is the welfare trap, and the bottom line is that the more welfare, the greater the long-term unemployment.
And I want to focus on something that is raising the minimum wage.
America has been fighting a war on poverty since 1965, almost a half century ago. And it is a war that we are still losing. I repeat, losing.
The rules of welfare, don't work, don't save, don't get married, we'll just keep you enslaved to this poverty plantation, don't work. And I know it firsthand.
I'm Tracy Oppenheimer for Reason TV. I'm here with Star Parker, founder and president of CURE, the Center for Urban Renewal Education. Why would someone be against the war on poverty?
This whole notion that we should even have a war on poverty dismisses the fact that individuals have a role in their own lives. I know firsthand about welfare dependency because of my own life living 7 years in and out. We attempted to reform welfare in the 90s to say at least work should be attached to this. I'm one that really believes the government has no business in charity, that this is for communities, this is for the private sector to help those who really cannot help themselves. The next step out of poverty is work. So they have to develop a work ethic. Well, minimum wage laws aren't helping. The very people that want a war on poverty set up minimum wage laws. Well, they're keeping people from being able to work. They set up regulations against business. They disdain business. Third step out of poverty, education. The very people who want this war on poverty are the ones standing in the way of parents having choice in education. Saving and investing, fourth step out of poverty. The very people who say, let's have a war on poverty are the ones standing in the way of saving and investing. They're the ones that are hitting us hardest when we say, maybe people should own their retirement. Why don't we at least engage the discussion about money following you to the retirement account that you own instead of the black hole of Social Security? So they're not serious. And even in charity, the fifth step out of poverty, to give back, oh, they stand in the way there too. They'd rather us not be able to tax deduct. They don't like the fact that you have even religious organizations that say, we'll help.
Specifically, with your experience with dependency on the welfare system, what insight has that given to you that you think is unique that most other politicians don't have access to?
Well, I've been there, done that. These politicians who've never been anywhere near an impoverished community and or person who try to say this is the only way we're going to do business here are not even willing to listen.
You mentioned the reform in the 90s, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. Did face a lot of resistance. There was a big scare for kids going hungry, more people living in the streets, even a full-blown urban crisis. In the words of Daniel Patrick Moynihan, one of the fathers of the war on poverty. We're now 15 years past that. It's 2011. Could you say what the differences are between then and now, and do we need more reform still?
Yes, we need more reforms, and I was very much involved in and consulting on federal welfare reform, and I brought my personal life experiences to the table to try to assess what do we need to do as a society to get people to be more responsible with the choices that they're making. And you're right, there was a very aggressive left that liked the status quo. They didn't care how broken the communities were becoming or the people that we said that we were trying to help. In fact, I received several death threats at that time just because I was consulting on the federal welfare bill. But post-welfare, what we saw, based on what we knew, 98% were just single women trying to raise children. And we knew that 90% of them had high school diplomas, that they had some work experience, that they knew what to do to transition their lives and yet needed a nudge to do such. Right after welfare reform was passed, we saw those women leave and go to work. The roles dropped in half. We didn't see babies starving. We didn't see people dying in the streets. Do we still need more reform on a local level? Absolutely. While numbers are going up because unemployment has gone up, so many are going to government to look for food stamps and or some type of subsidy, the system itself has to be totally overhauled and changed.
Could you maybe rate Obama's administration in regards to welfare, maybe give him a grade?
His grade is F. Keep in mind that in the 60s, when they started this social engineering, black family life was relatively intact. 22% out of wedlock birth rates. Today, 72%. They collapsed the family. What Barack Obama is attempting to do is spread that out into our great middle class and our suburban communities. These are the same ideas, but we've already tried them, and you can look into any and every one of those 4,000 housing projects that are still left standing and say this is not what we should be doing for the rest of the country. This is the wrong direction.
Do you think that the current system marginalizes minorities?
When you think about the civil rights movement, it was a movement to remove governmental barriers. Jim Crow was a governmental barrier. Remove these barriers so that we can educate, so that we can attain economic success. Rather than us continue on that journey to say, okay, we've removed these barriers, now go live free. Many that took up the mantle after Dr. King's death went to Washington and politicized the movement. And so you started seeing the interest of the community move toward government intervention. When you think about government intervention, not only did the welfare class start to unravel that entire community, the working class started to become addicted to government. Today, the government is the #1 employer of black men and the second largest employer of black women. This should not occur in a free society.
What about the people who started at rock bottom, whether it be a mental or physical handicap, or just those who grew up in the absolute worst situation?
Two things. Number one, you've got to be able to identify who they are amongst us that absolutely cannot help themselves. They have no one, they have no resources. That's actually one reason we should not have the government in this business. They can't identify. This is only done on a very local and personal level. Number two, once we've identified them, how do we help? How do we really help those that cannot help themselves? Well, you empower their charities. Local charities need empowerment. How do you do that? Does government redistribute $700 billion, or do you allow free people to freely give to the charity they most want to?
It represents a whole new America. In fact, it represents a total reversal from the days of welfare reform in the mid-1990s. Welfare has made an enormous comeback.
Federal welfare spending expected to skyrocket 80% over the next decade.
And there are no plans to rein it in. And as you just said, Gretchen, it's going to go up by $11 trillion. Spending on welfare,
right,
up $11 trillion in the next 10 years.
You're not going to believe this one. A new study on welfare benefits finds it actually pays more not to work in many states. According to the Cato Institute, welfare currently pays more than a minimum wage job in 35 states across the country.
These birds in Brooklyn, I think they're Canadian snow geese, I'm not sure. But the parks department tell you don't feed the birds, because if you feed the birds, they won't migrate. They want to adapt. They want to adhere to their natural instinct and migrate to the other parts of the country. And when birds migrate, it's beneficial. It's beneficial for the ecosystem, because the birds, some birds eat certain seeds, and then when they get the seeds out, the seeds is in their feces, and this is how certain seeds and stuff end up on the roof of a building, because the bird must have took it while they was flying, and the seeds rejuvenated, they repopulated, they were fertilized, and they grew right there. So, but like I say, life is simple. Humans create all the obstacles, and like when you feed the birds, they don't adapt to their natural instinct. They don't leave, they don't migrate, they become fat, lazy. They lose their natural instinct to survive in the wild, and they become dependent upon humans. And like this is how disease sets in. The birds might overpopulate, and it brings about an extinction to a certain species of the bird. So they tell you, don't feed them. You know, they get fat and they get lazy. And this is pretty much what happens in the hood. The government gives you everything you need. They give you everything you need to keep you fat and lazy. And for the most part, what it does is, like I always tell people, nobody is smarter than the next for the most part. There are exceptions to the rule. But for the most part, we all got the same brain. And it's all about what you put in your brain. You know, you just can't become what you have not prepared yourself to be. And people always think, well, that guy is smart. He does this and he does. Yeah, he prepared himself for that. He studied. You can't become a mathematician if you don't practice. You can't play the trumpet if you don't practice. You can't play in the NBA if you don't practice. Extreme amount of practice. The point I'm trying to make is, like, when you give people what they want and they don't have to work for it, it takes away their go-getter mentality. It takes away their creative thinking. And this is why, like, a lot of times you see break dancers and they be killing it. You know, that comes from a want or a need, and they want to better themselves. And this is why, you know, like a lot of people in the hood, when they get tired of suffering, they become creative. And this is like break dancing and, you know, like all this other shit you see that later on becomes a major sport or people or a Broadway play or something. It comes from a lack of not having, and you want something more, and you become creative. But if you give people everything they need, it takes away their go-getter mentality. And the project is full of an experiment. The projects are full of geniuses, and they don't even know it because they know they got a check coming in. That's how it works. They don't want to leave. They don't want to leave. Like the birds don't want to leave. They don't want to because they know they got something coming to them. That's the point of time. All right, y'all. I'm out.
Extreme homeless man makeover, and I think it's perfect proof of how welfare is obsolete and how charitable people can be.
You hungry?
Yes.
You hungry? Are you you need work?
Yes, I need work.
Well, it's your lucky day. You're an extreme makeover. You're in my show right now, and we're gonna go get you a shower. You're gonna get a haircut, and you're gonna go to a steakhouse with us. How does that sound for you, man?
All right.
You gonna come?
Say it again.
When you talk about welfare, you know, welfare is destructive for many reasons. Number one, welfare doesn't empower people. It gives people a sense of a safety net that destroys individual desires to go out there and make something of themselves, to go out there and create connections in the marketplace, connections in their neighborhood, in their communities, that give them the integration into society that really grants them a sense of certainty, community that helps them prosper, find opportunities, employment, and get the kind of support that is based on a healthy, localized connection with people, as opposed to a bureaucracy in the federal government, you know, just dishing out money to somebody. And the other aspect of it is that welfare kind of detaches individuals like you and me and people in your community. It detaches them from the real sense that they have a role to play in helping the people around them. Hey, if the federal government's just going to send poor people a check in the mail, if the federal government's taking care of that, then hey, what do I got to worry about? What's the point in seeing a homeless guy in the street and helping him when he can just go to the unemployment office, or he can just go to the food stamp office and just get free money and free food? Why should I help? It detaches people from their natural innate sense of compassion because, hey, the government's taking care of it. But here's the problem. The government is a machine. It's a bureaucracy. And most of the time when it tries to help people, it's not based on a genuine desire or localized sense of importance to help people. It's just political opportunism. It's like, hey, what better way for me, the government, to increase its power than to have a bunch of dependents through welfare, food stamps, and all types of government programs who, because they need me, the government, to get a bite to eat, they're going to be perfect voting fodder every 4 years to elect the kinds of political bureaucrats that thrive off a codependent, disempowered society. So that's one of the other components. Welfare destroys people. Welfare given from some guy in a bureaucratic office, centralized authority in some random building somewhere, distributed out into the mailboxes in the form of food stamps and checks, you know, once a month, is the most impersonal, unaccounted for process ever. And this video alone, and there's been many of these videos, countless of them. Look, this guy, this homeless video makeover thing, the video was released like less than 24 hours ago. It's already got like 200, 300,000 views. The creator of the video created a Kickstarter page to help pay for the guy's dentist. He's going to get his teeth pulled and replaced. So the Kickstarter surpassed its so many people donated. The Kickstarter passed its limit within like 3 hours. It's got like $2,700 right now. In 3 hours, people are massively charitable. But the problem is that they need a reason to do it. And when they have a popular guy on YouTube with 2 million subscribers and he goes out and he does something, all his fans are going to be motivated to do it because people tend to follow people of influence, like the maker of that video. But then the other component is welfare a lot of times takes away that localized sense of urgency to do something. And if you take welfare out of the equation, obviously there are some aspects, I'm sure there's a couple trickle-down benefits of welfare. I'm sure it's helped a few people, become empowered, but I think for the most part, it's a widespread systemic abuse of free money that just comes out of fiat currency printing presses over at the Federal Reserve. And that's not beneficial for anybody because it takes out accountability. It takes out a sense of urgency. It takes out the localized sense of community and helping people. How many homeless people do you see a day driving through the city that you don't think twice about? It happens all the time. And as we dilute the importance of local integration and aliveness in the world, as we dilute that, whether because the government's coming in and taking care of it for us, or because we just stop caring and the government naturally comes in and takes care of it for us, either way, welfare is either a cause or a reflection of a localized sense of detachment from your role in creating sustainable, prosperous societies. And these videos where people go out and do random, acts of kindness for homeless people, I mean, he took them out to like Texas and Brazil, he gave them new clothes, it was great. And these kinds of videos show that people love to be charitable, but they need a genuine reason to do it. And I think welfare revokes that reason as political opportunists who just want to, absorb as many, dependent, every 4-year voters by feeding them. I mean, think about it. If your government feeds you, you're going to support that government. Are you going to support a society of empowered, independent, strong, happy, content, self-empowered individuals if you rely on food stamps? Odds are you're not, because you're going to support the government that opportunistically feeds you so that you can be fodder for its political interests and goals as you vote for them, because hey, how could you not vote for the government that takes care of you? So I honestly think that these videos are interesting insights, and they show the incredible generosity of human beings when there's a genuine drive to do it, whether it's because a significant individual like a famous YouTuber with 1.7 million subscribers goes out and does something and encourages people to donate, or because people are integrated locally and they see the natural, genuine reasons to go out and do these things.